bow in, everybody. So welcome to the course on the Buddhist path of awakening. And if you'll bear with me, I'm going to try and do this on screen tonight, looking at my notes to avoid paper noises, which I hear have been pandemic, to use a word, in previous sessions. Just a couple of quick announcements. One is that there is a notification in chat about a replaying of the Night of the Iguana, in which our classmate Roberta Maxwell is acting, and it's been shown before. It's wonderful. It's by Tennessee Williams, of course, and there's a notice in there, in the link in there, so that you can go to the website and view it if you wish. Also, we're in response to popular demand. Tomorrow night, after meditation, this time, we're going to have a discussion group. People have been letting me know that they haven't been able to voice their questions, and I think they'd like a little more participation, some people. And so we're going to do this, and it'll be moderated by me, Barry, Laura, and Michael Kern as well, perhaps from time to time, each one of us. And you're welcome to come right after meditation. So tonight we're continuing on with the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Any other announcements? No. Okay.
I'm reposting that link because people that came later don't see it.
Oh, I see. Thank you. I see. Daniel doesn't see it. That's right. If I post it early, then you come later and it's not there. Okay. So we've already covered the first 2 of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. I was wondering last week where these come from, because the traditional 4 foundations of mindfulness are different. Foundation, let's see, of body, mind, I think it's effort, mind, and mental events. And here we have mindfulness of body, effort, life, my body, life, effort, and mind. And Trungpa Rinpoche, when he conducted these seminaries, these talks are all from a digest of the 15 years of seminary programs that he did, where he took his students off into one place or another for 3 months and gave them teachings. And he often, if not always, used as a tool for himself a text written by the previous incarnation of his own guru. His own guru was Jamgon Kongtrul of Shechen. And Jamgon Kongtrul of Shechen was the monastery, was one of 5 reincarnations of Jamgon Kongtrul Lodro Taye, who lived at the end of the 19th century. He was a great teacher. Was one of the 3 founders of the Rime movement. That's the non-sectarian movement in Buddhism. And Jamgon Kongtrul Lodro Taye was a great teacher and a scholar, and he wrote a 10-volume, or it's published in 10 volumes now, work called the Treasury of Knowledge. And Trungpa Rinpoche would read this and take notes from this and then go in and give his talks. And I think that's where these 4 foundations must come from. So we've already covered the mindfulness of body, and I'm just going to go over it briefly, as well as the mindfulness of life. The mindfulness of body really has to do with becoming aware of the presence that we have in this world. Our presence is both Our own body is physical, and it's also the objects of the five senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. This is the constant presentation of body. And when we come present out of dream, we come into an awareness of this body, the physical body of the world, our own physical body. And it's a kind of sanity. Now, he says here, it was said that the Kagyupas, he was a Kagyu, member of one of four main sects of Tibetan Buddhism. The Kagyus were one of those four. And he said, it's said that the Kagyus meditate like pigs. They just sit and breathe. You don't have to consciously focus on the body versus analyzing everything one experiences. You are just constantly aware of the body. You sit and breathe. You're right here. We're present right now. We're aware of our body. We're aware of the physicality of the world as well. In walking meditation, then the body is moving, and it's moving through space, like it's stirring space the way the oar stirs water. And we're aware of that physicality of the body as it moves through space. And this is the first foundation of mindfulness, is that we come out of dream into this world in the present, and we're aware of its presence, its bodiness. He says that quality of solidity, the solidity of body, seems to be the starting point of the mindfulness of body. Without this particular foundation, the practice of meditation could be very airy-fairy, back and forth, trying this, trying that. You become an eternal hitchhiker. Remember the term hitchhiker? That's this commentator that sits on our shoulder. So the technique of the first foundation of mindfulness is based on solidity and finding a home ground. The second of the four foundations of mindfulness, which we covered last week, is mindfulness of life. And really what this has to do is the fact that when we are off in dream, it's a kind of death. We are losing track, we are losing touch with our lives. And when we come back, he calls this, and it's called, this foundation is called Sowa in Tibetan, which means surviving, living. And we come back to our true survival, our true life, awareness in this present moment, which is constantly alive, constantly being born and dying, like these gestures and words and the way, I move, and now I'm here, now I'm there on the screen, and now your attention is on the screen, now your attention is somewhere else, maybe on the bottom of your seat as you sit on the cushion. All of this is the constant presentation of life as opposed to death. Death is when we go off into dream, we cease to be here. I remember back in the 60s when where the psychedelic revolution was going on, and people would take LSD and have a bad trip. And a bad trip would be that they would get lost in their heads in some kind of struggle, internal mental struggle. And you could watch a person having a bad trip, watch the color drain from their face, their eyes go glazed. You might be able to call their name and they wouldn't hear. And then as the drug wore off and they came back, you could watch the bloom of life come back to their cheeks. It's the same process. When we go off into the struggle of thoughts, all thoughts are about struggle. All thoughts are about wishing things were otherwise. All thoughts are about the fear of the survival of me, one way or another, the well-being of me. And when we go off into those thoughts, we lose track of life altogether. We go off on a bad trip, mild or not so mild. So really the foundation of the mindfulness of life is about coming back. And we practice what's called touch and go. Touch and go is the process of coming back. We're coming, but we have a thought, we're lost in our thoughts, and then we realize that we're lost in thought, and suddenly we're back in the room, we're back here. And there's a touching, and simultaneously, there's a release a release of grasping. Now we can grasp onto that afterwards, and then we have stopped going. But this practice that he's enjoining us to perform is really we come back, and simultaneously with the return to awareness, there's a release. That's the go. It's the release of tension. It's the release of graspingness. And it's a pleasurable feeling of being here in the present, awake, aware of all the color and beauty and sound and all the rest of it. And that's the process of touch and go. Touch and go happen at the same time. They are simultaneous. It's not like you touch first and then you go. That would be the mentality of self-acquisition. Like, I'm going to touch and I'm going to get something out of it, and then I'm going to follow the instructions and I'm going to go. And maybe I'll get something out of that. No. What this is the return to awareness, and simultaneously with return to awareness, there's a release from the graspingness, the self-aggrandizing quality of thought. And so it's all this, these four foundations are always about coming back to this. I want you all to just sit for a minute. Take a good posture. Open your eyes. This is a suggestion. And bring your eyes to the horizontal and relax your attention, and you just rest here in this space with whatever is presenting itself to you. Sights, these words. As your attention shifts, we call it, but really what's happening is different things are arising. Like now, the feeling of your bottom on the cushion is arising. Like now, a memory of your mother is arising. And we just rest here, easy, awake, without effort. It's very smooth, this awareness. It's very calm, and it's very full of whatever is arising. There's no effort. It's just here. This is the mindfulness of life. And also, this is the introduction to the mindfulness of effort, because this is the true meaning of effort in meditation. Let me go on a little bit. He says, meditation practice is to learn to appreciate the immediateness of what is happening right here and now. This is this practice of just opening one's eyes. Here we are in the space, nothing to do, everything to be aware of, no need to pursue anything or to try and make ourselves better. And in the middle of all this, we can work with the breath as an anchor to bring us back from dream and to lead us into this space, because the breath goes out into this space and dissolves. And when it dissolves, there's just this. And in fact, there's just this even when the breath is going out. Our awareness is mostly in the space, and the breath is just another phenomena, like these words, going out into it and dissolving, just like these words. So we're right here. The breath is like a highlight, a punctuation mark. It's a line drawn on water. It disappears. And there's just the space, always the space. They call this practice 75-25, or Trungpa Rinpoche did anyhow. And what it means is, figuratively speaking, it's just sort of to try and point you in the right direction, that most of the awareness is right here in the space, and then the breath goes out like a punctuation mark. It's the 25. We have a light touch on the breathing. That's the 25. And so we can still be aware as we are breathing, as we are watching the breath. We're aware of all these phenomena too. They're in the 75. Sights, sounds, occasional smell, taste, who knows what. A bodily sensation, an itch on your head. All these things arise and pass away in this present moment. And we have a light touch on the breath, and we never lose track of this space with all of its phenomena rising. So, right effort really means, you see, the wrong effort is, I want to get somewhere. I've got this goal, and I am going to discipline myself and work hard, and I hope to get to the goal. Right now, I'm about 25% of the way to the goal. If I work a little harder, I'll get 50%, and then I'll get 75, and maybe someday I'll get all the way to my goal. That's the wrong kind of effort. That's all involved with thought, with ambition, with constant journey from here to there, from an imagined here to an imagined there. Right effort means letting go of that and coming back to this present. So right effort is really totally relaxed. It's a funny word, effort. We do have to set up circumstances and conditions that will help us practice this right effort. And so we might routinize our meditation practice. It's really good to have a regular practice. It really helps with this relaxation into this present moment. And to sit upright when one practices, and to work with the breath and all of that. And so there is some effort in that sense. But then what that allows us to do is to have right effort, mindfulness of effort, which is the constant letting go of this and that, I and other, dreams, and of relaxing into this space, this present moment. We can do it right now. I'm hoping that as you listen to these words, you are doing it. You're relaxing into this space, just being present here. He says, the effort of the third foundation of mindfulness is extraordinary because it's not what we normally think of as effort, which is always about self-promotion, self-improvement. This effort is about letting go. That's why it's extraordinary. And this is a natural instinct in us. It's not something we have to create. It's already there. It comes about when we give up our neurosis, our anxiety, our feeling that we have to improve ourselves. And then presto, we just relax into this. It's who we actually are. So we're going back, he says, to this first flash, first is figuratively used, flash of awareness. He says, mindfulness of effort is not a way of reforming yourself. It is starting with what you are. It is being what you are. This is a practice of being, not of becoming. We're of coming back to our being, what we already are. He says, through this kind of awareness, it is possible to develop effort that is not based on a particular plan or aim, but on the simple, unconditional effort to be. To be. We already are. So we're coming back to our being. And he talks about really what I've just been talking about, the game of resistance. There's some form of it that's going to be ongoing. Otherwise, we'd be enlightened already. There's some habit we've got of trying to make it better. But by relating with the resistor and the resistance, you have already begun your journey. In other words, you see the resistance and the resistor, your thoughts, your desires, and when you see them, you're already back in awareness, in this true mindfulness, this relaxed state. He says, if you try to eliminate resistance, you are feeding it, right? Because you treat it like an enemy and you reify it. in order to have an enemy, you've got to have it there. And so if you make your neurosis, your resistance, your wishing things were otherwise an enemy, you give it life. He says, whereas if you just acknowledge that such a thing as resistance exists, there is no problem. He says, looking for smooth practice, for practice with no resistance, only increases the problem. So you include absolutely everything in your awareness. And in doing that, there are no enemies. As soon as you include everything in your awareness, there's no from here to there. It's all here. He says, and just what I've been saying, mistaken effort is a kind of effort is trying to achieve something by struggling. Another is a kind of effort of dragging yourself along with an attitude of tremendous meaningfulness and seriousness. There is no upliftedness or inspiration in this approach. You are just being dutiful, crawling along like a worm eating its way through wood, So you bring yourself back to mindfulness. He says, eventually, you're inspired by sitting practice and meditation. You become so inspired that you don't even have to sit, but sitting just comes to you. When you sit down, you might be sitting in a bus station and suddenly you're practicing your awareness, this mindfulness of true effort. In right effort, the main technique that is developed is to constantly bring yourself back to mindfulness of the breathing. This is really a help. It brings you back out of dream. You are bringing your mind back from the dream world into reality. You are breathing and you are sitting. And then he talks about the abstract watcher. The abstract watcher is instant effort. It's like it's suddenly you realize that you're dreaming. That realization is this abstract watcher. The real watcher, the neurotic watcher, is constantly talking and saying, that's good, that's bad, you should do this, you'll get that. That's what the neurotic watcher is doing. But now we're talking about the abstract watcher, which is suddenly, he said, you could call this sudden kind of effort a leap, a jerk, a sudden reminder. You could call it amazement or sudden abrupt amazement. He talks about this. This is very traditional, that in the Buddhist tradition, the two main analogies for right effort are a person in love and a hunter. Because both a person in love and a hunter are fixed naturally without any effort on the object of their awareness. And that object comes to them. It's just present. It's there. It's total absorption in the object. And eventually, through exertion means setting up a daily practice, a schedule for yourself, observing it. And through that, we develop unceasing interest in sitting practice and in awareness practice in general. You're not looking for entertainment, you're coming back to life, really to life, to appreciation of whatever is arising in this present moment. And it begins to extend out into your daily life as well. That same kind of openness, relaxed awareness and appreciation. He says by developing a regular physical routine of sitting, you can bring about a psychological change. You experience a glimpse of awareness coming to you. And as for mental chatter, it's no problem. It's part of the sitting process. You become aware of that too. And you just include that in your meditation. There is no enemy here. It's all grist for the mill. And if you've got an enemy, then bring that into your meditation practice. See that. And now we go to the last one, which is the mindfulness of mind. It's the self-conscious awareness of what is happening to us as we sit and meditate. Eventually, you see, the whole thing is that the enlightened mind, the mind of Vidya, which is true seeing. Vidya is the Sanskrit word for it, and the term in Tibetan is Rikpa. And it means enlightened seeing. And the thing about enlightened seeing, enlightened mind, we already have it. And it knows itself. It's just like, it's as simple as this, that right now, you know that you're aware, unless you're sleeping. You know that you're aware right here. You don't have to check. You don't have to say, am I aware? Yeah, you know it. You know that you're aware of these words, of this image on the computer screen. Now that I mentioned it, of your body sitting in the chair or wherever you're sitting. That kind of mindfulness is the mindfulness of mind. That it has the quality of intelligence. And the point is to maintain your discipline so that you're not constantly lost in daydreams. But at the same time, you keep a quality of freshness and wakeful mindfulness. So we begin to develop the habit of coming back from dreams, daydreams, into this effortless awareness in the present moment. And this effortless awareness, we know that it's here. We know we're here when we're here. You know you're here. You can feel your legs. You can hear this voice, see the image on the screen. And then about this is really good. He says, mindfulness only concerns the very small area where you actually are, not before or after or anywhere else that you might imagine. In other words, it's about this. It's not about the past. It's not about the future. It's not about some other place. It's all about, this is where we live. And only this is where we live, this present moment. When they talk about renunciation on the path, renunciation of worldly things, we think, well, I have to give up my money, or I've got to give up that great steak dinner that I was planning. No, the real meaning of renunciation is to come back into this present moment, to acknowledge and to know that this is the only reality, that the past and the future are fictions, dreams that we create, very different from anybody else's because they're lies. They're just stories made up. And when they're over, when we stop telling ourselves that particular story, it vanishes. Now, certain ones of them may repeat from time to time, but eventually they all change, they all disappear. All these stories about the past and the future. If they don't disappear completely, they change under the impact of current experience. They're just continually evolving fictions, just like scripts for movies or television shows. So he says, mindfulness only concerns the very small area where you actually are, not before and after. We are just little people concerned with this dot of existence called nowness. And that's enlightened mind. And then he says this too, there's this common misconception he's addressing. He says, meditation is not about getting into a trance and losing track of what is happening here and now. I mean, that's the whole thing with transcendental meditation and some forms of Hindu meditation. And it's also a perversion that's practiced among Buddhists of going off into trance states where we're detached from the present moment. We're in a sort of a fixed dream. But those are very temporary, even though some of them may last a long time. But eventually they all end, like all things that are created. The only thing that doesn't end is this ongoing continuity of the present moment and the ongoing continuity of the consciousness, intelligence that pervades it. And in fact, that's the meaning of the word Tantra. Tantra literally means continuity. And what it's referring to is the continuity of this present moment, the continuity of the consciousness that is one with it, one with this space. So we come back into this mindfulness, we're calling it here. It's this awareness of this space that we're in right now. Mindfulness or consciousness is, quote, that which is able to take notice of what is happening. He says, even if you try to escape the here and now, like go off into a sexual fantasy or a fantasy of aggression, you could be mindful of your escape. Two things can't happen at once, so we can be aware of what is happening. You are doing one thing at a time. Mindfulness of mind is constantly keeping up your practice. We come back to this again and again. The bird song is, come back. You realize you're dreaming, you're already back. See it. See the dream and see the fact that you're back and you're aware. It's effortless. Mindfulness of effort is the gardening which brings it about. This constant mindfulness. He says, you're even surrendering any notion of surrender. There is nothing but this existence. And now he talks about the Transcendental Watcher. And the Transcendental Watcher is the watcher that knows that we were dreaming and knows that now we're back. Just as in the morning when you realize that you were having a dream, a night dream, and now you're back. Same thing during the day. This Transcendental Watcher is simple self-consciousness. It is not clumsy self-consciousness that feels meanness, big-headedness, and a faint element of embarrassment. It is simply being aware and conscious of what is happening completely and totally. This is the superordinary watcher, he calls it, the Transcendental Watcher. It's able to see what is happening while the application of awareness of breathing is taking place. We know that we're watching the breath. We know that there are phenomena arising around us in the space, that the breath is going out into it, and it's dissolving, and then there's just here. He says the best way to practice this is just to be aware of what you are doing, which doesn't have to be heavy-handed. You just be there, and then touch and go. Touch and go means you are there, you're aware, and it's relaxed. That's the go. He says, and by doing this, we're creating the sacred from the secular. That's a complicated subject. And it's really the main subject of the Shambhala teachings. It's also of Tantra. And without going into it in any great detail, what it simply means is that when we begin to let go of these nasty dreams, which are always about saying, my life isn't good enough, I want it to be better. When we let go of them, we begin to come back into this present moment. And this is the true gold. This is the true value, that our life, this is what it means to be sacred, is to value this moment, this time, this life as it arises now, for no reason at all, just because it's beautiful, it's alive, we feel it. It's of value in and of itself, for no reason at all. Things that are of value for a reason, that's the mentality of samsaric mind, of confused mind, of thinking mind. We say, if I could get this, then I'd get that, and then I'd be much better. That's samsara. Enlightenment, the true idea of what is sacred, is that things are of value for no reason at all, automatically, everything, and it's already here. And then he talks about nyam. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You can read about them. Nyam are temporary experiences that come to us on the path. And there are the 5 common and the 3 not so common. And there are experiences. So for instance, 2 that are unpleasant are you experience your mind as a brook on a steep hill, and then as a turbulent river. And those are supposed to be not so pleasant. And then you experience it as a slowly flowing river. And then you experience it as an ocean without waves. And then just a variation on that is you experience your mind as a candle undisturbed by the wind. These are nyam. They're very temporary. They come to us and they're in varying degrees pleasurable. The 3 extraordinary nyam are bliss or joy that can come when you say, you might experience, you actually feel like you're beginning to really get your meditation, and it can produce a feeling of great celebration and joy. Then there's luminosity, the experience, selwa, which is a far-seeing, you might become sort of very intuitive and very intelligent and start to see things that ordinary people, or that you anyhow, didn't see before. And finally, there's non-thought, mitokpa. Those are the last 3. Bliss, joy, that's the first one, luminosity, and non-thought, complete state of non-thought, almost complete, but there's still some quality of watcher there. But this could be a really profound feeling of no thoughts. And the thing about the nyam is that the word nyam is synonymous with temporary. It can be an indication that your practice is progressing, but don't hold on to that, because that becomes the way of samsara again. So nyam are worth noting that your practice is improving when they come, some of them especially the last 3, and let them go. Do not hold on to them, because that is the way of neurosis and suffering. That's the constant injunction about nyam. So the purpose, he says, of the 4th foundation, this foundation of mind, is the Transcendental Watcher. It is the intelligence that keeps us on track so that we will not be led astray by extraordinary experiences, nyam, or by our dreams. There is nothing sensational, nothing exciting, nothing far out anymore. That is the purpose of the 4th foundation. The Transcendental Watcher purely looks at the present situation. It does not speculate about past and future, but purely looks at what is happening at this moment. So we can do it at any time. We can do it right now. You just come back, and here we are. So we can have a discussion. If you like. Gary, I'm going to rely on you to see people.
Yeah, a hush fell over the crowd. Robert has a question, I think.
Robert DiVincenzo.
Hi, good evening. I have a couple questions. What is the correct spelling of nyam?
Well, you got to understand, the correct spelling is with Sanskrit letters that were adapted to Tibetan, but they've been Romanized. And there are many systems for Romanizing Tibetan characters. The most scholarly is called the Wade, a Wiley system of Romanization. And when you learn how to read that, you can actually write the Tibetan letters. See, many of them have the same sound, Tibetan letters. So it's difficult to look at a Roman letter, like an A, a B, a C, and find the Tibetan from it. But if you use the Wiley, you can do that. Now, in this book, they're not using Wiley. They're using just a common romanization that sort of looks like, to our eyes and ears, the way it sounds in Tibetan. And what they're spelling it as is Nyam. I don't know what the Wiley is for that.
So you said there was the last stage were bliss, luminosity, and non-thought. What was the stage before that?
I'm sorry.
Different stages of Nyam.
It's in the book. Yeah, they're just outlined in the chapter. But the first one is that you experience your thoughts rushing like a mountain stream and coming down like a mountain stream. The second one is you experience your thoughts like a turbulent river. No, the first one is a turbulent river. The second one is a mountain stream, I think. And the third one is you experience your thoughts like an ocean, calm. I'm missing one. I'm going by memory. And the fourth, what is the fourth and fifth? Hold on. They're in the book. And they're not terribly profound. The main thing is you're being warned not to put too much effort into maintaining the Nyam, because they are temporary, they will go, and they're not profundity. Profundity, when you actually have a realization, it doesn't go. Nyam are temporary and disappear. But they are indications that you're practicing a lot. So they're markers.
The explanation you gave, John, for renunciation, is there a relationship between renunciation and non-attachment?
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. Renunciation is the act of coming present, and non-attachment is what you experience when you are present. You're not dreaming about that steak dinner, or that trip to Paris, or whatever it might be. That's the attachment. And instead, non-attachment means, in one degree or another, that you're here. You're in mindfulness of mind. You're present. You're relaxed. You're awake, right here in this space, this present moment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. True renunciation is always about coming back to the present. It's always about coming back to awareness. If you practice renunciation in order to get somewhere, like now I'm going to get enlightened. I'm going to give up all my money, and that'll make me into a better person. That's the path of samsara. Once again.
Roberta, I think, had a question.
Yes. Are there persons who can exist in the now for great periods of time, and perhaps their whole lives?
I think so. I mean, not being one of them, I can only speculate. I always felt that Trungpa Rinpoche was one of those. And they say in the teachings that it's absolutely possible. All through the teachings, they say that this can be done by anybody, absolutely anybody.
Is that what it means to be enlightened?
Yes. It's one aspect of what it means to be enlightened. There are many ways of describing it. But an enlightened person is no longer a believer in their own thoughts. They're a believer in this, in the now, this dot, the reality, and the constant dance with the phenomenal world that can take place in this moment. And so they say that, the enlightened people, the siddhas, we talk about siddhis, those are powers that are held by siddhas, who are power holders, and that they juggle the sun and moon. What it means is that they're constantly playing with phenomena. We use that word, play. In Tibetan, it's rolpa. And it means play, constant enjoyment, constant curiosity, constant involvement, and constant compassion. That play is an act of compassion always. It brings everyone involved into this world, this beautiful world.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. You read the lives of these so-called saints, and that's really what it's all about. And some of them are so outrageous and funny. Last week we talked about the story about the Buddha telling this guy who was so stupid that he couldn't remember the teachings to just take a broom and every time he swept, say sweeping. And the fellow gets enlightened.
Fred.
Hi, John.
Hey, Fred.
These four foundations of mindfulness, especially the mindfulness of mind. It seems like one of the most profound, if not the most profound, attainment on the Hinayana path. What's your experience or teaching on this?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
The mindfulness of mind.
Yes.
It seems like, like an attainment on the Hinayana path. It's like something like very profound. Like you're just aware that you're aware, and you kind of could snap out of any funk.
I have to tell you that Trungpa Rinpoche, he had great faith in his students. And he had worked with the people who went to seminary before they got to go to seminary to some degree, and he approved them. These teachings are not ordinary Hinayana teachings. These have a very, very advanced flavor. They are really describing, in one degree or another, the mind of enlightenment itself. The Hinayana teachings, from a higher perspective, are still very much involved with achievement. And they are couched in terms of cause and effect. These are the way the higher teachings characterize the lower. They say that they are involved with the movement of the practitioner along the path, that by doing this, you get that. The higher teachings don't do that. They simply describe the way it is. And these are very much in tune with that. So I think Trungpa Rinpoche had great faith in the ability of people to hear this and practice this. He also had great faith in the practice itself, that by sitting and by hearing these teachings, we will be moved along the path, almost in spite of ourselves. That these realizations come in a surprising way. You thought you were going to get it by doing this. You do A and you get B, but it doesn't work that way. It more works that if you study and you practice, suddenly it just seems to come. And I've heard this over and over again from students, including people here in this room tonight. So these are a very advanced take on the four foundations of mindfulness.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, like I had an experience this morning of just a quote unquote a bad meditation. I kept falling asleep, and I'm just like, oh look, here I am. I'm dozing off again, and it just like whoop, whoop,
Yeah.
and it was really in time with this. Thank you.
Yeah, if you just keep at it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. One day you're dozing off, the next day you're lost in it. fantasy, it doesn't matter. You keep practicing. You keep coming back to the breath, keep going out. And as you walk down the street, if you can remember, come back from dream. That's terrific practice. You can do it hundreds of times a day.
Christy.
Thanks so much, John, for these teachings. I guess I just had a question about, so when I just in reading about Nyam, I just really, it really resonates with me that these three things you talk about, bliss and joy and luminosity, and kind of like these moments of no thought. And I feel those kind of going in and out of those sometimes. And I do feel like I get like excited when I feel like these little moments happen. And so I guess like what could be an indicator of like holding on to those? Like, is that, I mean, I guess that would be different for each person.
I don't know, make a sign and put it over your door. I don't know what. And the main idea is that, you have the experience, don't beat yourself up for it, but just move on, come back to your practice. If it arises again, okay. If it doesn't, don't worry about it.
Great.
Yeah. And take encouragement that these are indications that you're practicing properly, that they come. But then they go.
Then they go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing. And you see, we're constantly enjoined to just let them go, because if you hold on to it, that becomes a very samsaric path of suffering, wanting to get it again.
Right. Okay.
And that's
Thank you.
It's not only unpleasant and suffering, it's a waste of your good time.
But I guess some of that, like feeling those, I guess you could call them like little breakthroughs or whatever, is kind of what sort of, I don't know, in some ways makes me want to keep going. So it's kind of this, it sort of helps, but then, yes, I guess that, so I guess I just don't know. I guess I just need to be watchful, of just when things shift from, I mean, it's just exciting. I just want to keep, I guess I'm not, I know, but I guess chasing is not good. Yes, I understand that.
Right.
Chasing after that. And, for this
there are lots of cures for this. One of them is more practice. So for instance, group retreats, when we can do that again, they're very good. And solitary retreats. And I would guess I'm guessing, but I would say you probably haven't done a solitary retreat.
No.
They're very powerful, and they will move your practice along. You have to be ready for it. And the general guideline that we have in, as Trungpa students was that when a person has done a week, at least, of a group retreat or more, then they might think about doing a solitary retreat. Only because we don't want people to go into solitary retreat and fail. Failing means come out, because they don't like it. We want them to succeed, to be able to stay in for the period of time they've selected. And it's a terrific practice that really deepens your meditation. Cuts through a lot of this, burns it up.
Right. Thoroughly bored. Is that?
You are. You really encounter boredom in every other damn day.
Wonderful.
Trungpa Rinpoche used to say, this is called kusulu practice. Kusulu is a name in Sanskrit. It means sort of a yogi who goes off and practices austerities in isolation. But he called it transcendental pig practice. And he said, when you go into a retreat, all you do is the kusulu practice. You eat, shit, sleep, and meditate. And it's amazing, it's an amazing practice. I mean, think about it. How many people have actually ever spent time truly alone? And by alone, I mean you give up all forms of entertainment Their cell phone, forget it, it's gone. Books, no. You can take one book, a Dharma book, and you only are allowed to read it for a few minutes at night just for inspiration, but not a study course. No writing, no memoir, no music. Forget it. Even walks. Okay, exercise, but don't turn them into entertainment. That's
Wow.
Yeah, that's retreat practice.
It's great.
It varies on retreat.
It's just great.
I hope
Yeah, well, most people have never, most of us have never really been alone with our own minds. We always have something to keep us company and distracted. People, television, movies, books. Who else?
Thanks, John.
Correct. And Trip.
I've got a question. Regularly aware of how my neuroses and dreams, neuroses come into my dreams during my sleep state. And I'm curious if there are opportunities to incorporate practice to impact that state. It's been really pronounced lately of, I think a lot of people go through heavy loads, and sometimes it's almost like sleep is, I don't know the word to describe, almost an explosive departure from the day, and not necessarily in a good way. And I'm just curious if there's a way to incorporate practice into the sleep state before, during, or after.
Yes, and there are practices that are taught in Tantra, dream yoga, and I haven't done them, so I'm not really qualified to speak about them. The first stage, though, is a practice that is taught outside of Buddhist contexts, and it's simply called conscious dreaming. And that is the practice of being aware when you're dreaming at night, being aware that you are dreaming. That's the first step. And it's the same thing in dream yoga.
And are you going to?
I'm sorry? Are we still with Trip, or are we going to switch to Roberta? So there are these practices, but there are some people out there abroad who are teaching them, and I haven't done them, so I can't really speak to it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And anybody else? If not, we can close, and this will be an earlier close. And just a couple of things again. The play that Roberta is in, and the link for the website that informs you about it is on in chat. Yes, and somebody's put up. Oh yeah, here's the link to Jamlin Kongtrul's Treasury. I think this might be it. I don't know. It's called the Treasury of Knowledge. Is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The first volume.
First volume. Yeah, there are 10. And also that once again, that tomorrow night there's an experiment. We're going to have a discussion group right after meditation, if you like. And so now we'll close by dedicating the merit. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. See you tomorrow morning.
Defensive, Roberta.
Hasta mañana.
Okay.
Hi, Judy. Take care.
Night.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm just looking at people.
People watching.
We're looking at you.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Holly.
Roberta,
Thanks.
can I ask a question? I'm having problems with my copying and pasting on the chat. Is there keywords I can get to in Google or on for the show?
That's a good cut. Is there any way that
I can send it to you, Dan.
Oh, that's good.
You can say save chat and it'll drop it onto your computer.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that. I
Yeah.
was trying to copy and paste. Yeah. That's cool.
Lower on the bottom of
If I have a problem.
Okay.
Okay. John, if I have a problem, I'll ask you to email it to me. Thanks.
So long, guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.
Okay.